Greetings, everyone. P. Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of In the Prog Seat. It's Tuesday night. We're back to the letters of the alphabet. Today, we're going to cover two of them, N and O, so we can speed up and make sure we finish this series before the end of the year, because the end of the year is upon us. And we've got in the house today, we got Chad Hutchinson, Ken Golden, our center square once again, Chuck Alvarez, with his hat on, Louis Nassau, George Lemie, and Eric Porter. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
And or good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to those watching. Welcome back to In the Prog Seat again here on Tuesday night. George goes running.
Let's hope that George didn't get a sudden headache. George is good. George is good.
He's back.
All right.
All right, so we've decided, because N and O are a little light, as are some of the letters other than like S and T and maybe R throughout the rest of the alphabet. So we're going to be doubling and tripling up on some of these letters over the next couple of weeks to ensure that we get through the alphabet by the end of the year. So we're going to start with N and we're going to move on to O. So Chad, kick us off with your first selection for N.
Okay, for N, my first one, and I only have a collection for this, is the classic National Health. So if I had to pick one of the albums off here, I'd probably pick of Hues and Cures. You know, it's hard to pick between them, but good stuff. This is a pretty great collection. I don't know if anybody has this. It's just called Complete. It has pretty much everything they did outside of that Cuneiform live album that came out. Playtime. Was that live? Yeah, that was live, right?
Playtime, yes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I thought so, which is also pretty great. But so yeah, number 3 for N, National Health.
I have that as well, and then I went and bought the Esoteric remasters as well. So I have like way more National Health than I need to own. But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Great band. Ken, what do you got?
Well, I'm going to make a switch out because I don't want everybody to say National Health. So, first thing, I want to wish my lovely wife Lauren a happy 35th wedding anniversary. Today's our 35th wedding.
Happy anniversary, guys. Nice.
Could you guys imagine being married to me for 35 years?
Trouble being on the line with you for an hour.
And how am I celebrating it? And how am I celebrating it? With the letters N and O. How appropriate. So my first band, Nectar. Remember the Future. One of the great British bands. You know, everybody seems to think they're German. They're now New Jersey transplants. And they started out as a psych band, moved right into the prog realms, and I think some of the greatest progressive rock from the 70s we ever had. Tab in the Ocean, Killer, Sounds Like This, Killer, Remember the Future. I love Recycled. Maybe this is the masterpiece. I don't know. They had a lot of masterpieces. Great band. Roy Albrighton, great guitar player. Great, just Nectar. One of the all-time greats.
Yep.
That's my number one.
And every album is different than the one that came before it.
Yeah, they're all a little different.
Yep.
But there was still Nectar. You know, there's.
Yep. Sure. Great pick.
Yep.
Chuck.
I'm probably gonna, Ken's probably gonna hate me for this, but my first pick is gonna be Elastic Rock from Nucleus. That's my number one pick.
That's a great pick.
It's a great, amazing jazz rock band, English band. Well, some of the members also went on to play with went to go play with Soft Machine. What's a great drummer, just a great band. That's my number one pick for tonight. And so my number 3, and that's Nucleus once again. And it's Elastic Rock.
Yeah, the Soft Machine guys stole all the guys from Nucleus.
Yeah, there's 4 members.
Poor Ian Carr was left with nothing all the time, right?
He was left with nothing.
Yeah.
But you know, isn't Nucleus more like a jazz band that was sort of playing a little bit of rock versus Soft Machine that was a rock band trying to play jazz? Like Ian Carr is like a very solid academic jazz musician, trumpet player, right?
Well, he came from that school for sure.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I love Nucleus. Don't get me wrong, but
you stick Alan Holdsworth in the band, and is it a jazz band? I don't think so. He was coming from Higginbottom's Wrench, and Tempest. So,
Tempest.
yeah, I mean, all of the
Jazzier than Soft Machine, though, for sure.
Mhm.
yeah, but they were plugged in. I mean, they were an electric band, and to me, they're a jazz rock band.
And a very good one. A lot of good albums. Good choice, Joe.
Mhm.
All right, Lewis.
Okay, so my first N, I think, is going to have to be a French band called Nil,
Cool.
and the album is has a weird spelling of it's Novo Subsole, which basically means nothing new under the sun. But these dudes really play a very eclectic mix of stuff. I did check it this time. It sounds like a girl, and it is a girl singing, and I just love them. I think they really do some that I think they only released 3 albums. Soli was the last one. They've been dormant for a number of years now. But if you like mixtures of styles in prog, I mean, they even have a little bit of Zool, but without the Klingon opera kind of vibe. So I really dig it. It's a really good French band. So my number 3 would be Nil. Album is Novo Subsole.
Cool. George.
Number 3 for N, Native Construct.
Nice.
It's a good
Fairly
one.
obscure, one and done. They're a couple of Berkeley dudes. The amazing thing about this record is they never actually practiced it before they wrote it and recorded it. They never played in the same room. They wrote academically. Just wrote it out. Stylistically, I put it somewhere between the Buried in Me and Haken, maybe.
That's a great record.
Yeah,
And
it's got a couple
I
things.
walked out on it.
Couple things I usually hate: drum machine and growly vocals. There's only growly vocals in a couple small patches, and the drum machine work is pretty convincing sound wise. Playing wise, not so much. A lot of blast beats that nobody could do. And I don't know why they went with a drum machine. No drummers at Berkeley, but yeah, it didn't look like you know this, Pete. This is right up your alley. I mean, this.
Yeah, that is a great record.
It's a good record. They're one of the worst live bands that I ever saw. They played at Prague Power, and they had a laptop, like taking center stage. Like half of what I heard was coming off the laptop.
That's unfortunate. That's very unfortunate.
I walked out on them. They were absolutely god awful. But the CD is very good. Pete, you'd like it.
Yeah, check it out. Native
It's a
Construct.
good prog metal album. It's a really good prog metal album.
Very good.
I'll have to investigate.
I forgot all about it. Good choice.
Eric.
Good evening, gentlemen. I
Good
will start, and number 3, kind of a little odd for me. No guitar on this one, but I'm going with Niacin. And I like their live disc.
Sorry about that.
Shannon Chambers, awesome together. And I love Hammond B3, so you get that all day long with Novello playing. Can't remember how many studios they have, if it's 2 or 3. But I like the live record. I just think you get a lot of energy from this one. And those 3 guys are amazing together. So that's my number 3 is Niacin.
Cool.
Great band to see live.
Yes. And they're my number 3 as well. I went with Time Crunch.
Time Crunch.
I think is my favorite studio album. Yeah, these guys are really good. I mean, they're great live. So I was like in a quandary. I had 2 bands vying for my number 3, and I'll save my other choice for my honorable mentions. But the other band that I wanted to be my number 3 only had 1 album. So I was like, let me go with the band that's got more albums. So I've got Steven's list too, but Steven only gave me 3 choices overall. So I'll just give his 2 N and his 1 O as we go through. His number 3 pick was a band called Not Otherwise Specified, U.S. Heavy Symphonic Prog. The name of the album is Projective Instruments.
If I remember, they're from Atlanta,
Okay.
or so from somewhere around there. I could be wrong, but I think that's the case.
Okay. So that's his first pick. All right, back to Chad.
All right, we'll make this easy. Keep things going. My number 2, Niacin, also Time Crunch. Next.
Big bass, great drums, and
Oh, yeah.
And that word.
I'll never forget it when they played at Nearfest. I guess it was '86, and Dennis Chambers is up there with the double bass drums and the whole
The riser
Drum.
was, yeah.
the whole drum risers going back and forth.
Yeah.
We had sandbags on either side so he wouldn't roll away. And when he came off stage,
It's incredible. Yeah.
and when he came off stage, the only thing he wanted was McDonald's.
That sounds like the Dennis Chambers I know.
And they were really good that day. And then Sheehan was so loud. So yeah, as always. Yeah. All right,
He
Ken.
did the same thing at Jack's in Virginia. I was sure that drum riser was going to die. I mean, it was shearing visibly. I was from the side of the
Doing
stage.
one-handed fills, you know.
Yeah, it's fucking mutant.
He's a
Ron's
beast.
great drummer.
He's a beast. All right, Ken, what do you got?
All right, so I did a swap out for National Health with this band from Italy, New Trolls.
Oh yeah.
And New Trolls, kind of an interesting band. They're always kind of a bit of a chameleon. They started out more in the pop vein, and then they did Concerto Grosso #1. They went into a prog direction. Then they went full on prog, and then the band basically fractured into two bands. Nico, Johnny, Frank, Maurizio, for contractual reasons, they had to put it out under their individual names. And then you had New Trolls Atomic System, which saw the band going off into that version of the band going off into jazz rock realms. They were great. Just this was the classic lineup, just killer Italian prog. What's interesting is that towards the end of the 70s, they went into like the disco phase. I mean, they went totally commercial, and then they kind of resurrected themselves over like the last 20 years and went back into the sort of orchestral symphonic prog direction. Chad, weren't you guys talking about having them at one point? Or
Me
no?
personally, no.
I thought for some reason that
Yes,
they
they were talked about for 2011.
okay. But anyway, New Trolls, a band, Italian band that doesn't get talked about, I think, enough.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I only own one record by them, which is the Concerto Grosso.
They did
And
#1 and #2, yeah.
Yeah, it's a live thing they did in Rome somewhere, and it has great parts, but man, then the Velveeta and the high fructose corn syrup make an appearance,
Yeah.
and it makes it almost unlistenable for me. Like, what would be a good record to hear them at their most proggish? What was the thing you held up?
9 on Ball Mount, Uti. This is a great one.
Okay.
It was it Night on Ball Mountain? It was which may have come out with an Italian title as well. The jazz rock version of the band, New Trolls Atomic System, was great. Tempi Dispari, another one, really great, like 20-minute jazz rock freakouts. Really, it's great stuff. But when they hit that core period in the mid-70s, when they were like a full-on prog band, they were great. And like I said, they don't get talked about enough.
Yeah, because that
Probably because they made a bunch of shitty records too. You know?
Yeah, that concert, no bueno. I mean, it had good moments, but
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
New Trolls, my #2.
Chuck.
All right, make this very quick. German band that I love very much. Won't make the mistake of mispronouncing them again. Neu 75. This is their third album. Once again, just one of those bands. That you can hear the influence on the post-punk scene. They had a lot of krautrock moments on there that influenced bands like Susie and the Banshees, and other sort of post-punk bands. Neu 1975 is my second album.
Cool. Lewis.
All right, so my #2, I was originally going to go with Naked City with John Zorn, but then which is a really, really great album. Actually, I'm just going to stick with it. #2 is Naked City, John Zorn, because it's going to piss off a lot of people who like the twiddly bits and the pastoral sounds, and there's none of that there. But it's a really great record, and it has a punk guitarist Chris Betting, or was it that like that weird guy that was doing all kinds of music? It's a really interesting record.
Chris
So
Betting, Chris Betting played with Roxy Music too.
Play with everybody.
Yeah, the guy with like a musical chameleon just going everywhere. So
He was a nucleus.
there you go. So I really like that album. I think they didn't do very many, but maybe one or two. But I love that one. Naked City, amazing. And the cover is very graphic. I guess in today's world you have to issue a possible trigger warning. But it's good. It's good shit. Just really good shit. John Zorn. If you're not familiar with John Zorn, I don't know what to tell you. It's hard to start because he's made, I don't know, hundreds of records. It's crazy how much stuff he's made, but it's a lot of it is good. So,
And who he
Naked
played
City.
with. Mhm.
yeah. So
Cool. George.
My number 2 has already been called.
Nice.
That's a good one too.
organic.
6 albums, by the way, Eric.
Ooh,
6.
I'm way off.
I've seen him live several times too, and Chambers has it in second gear in this band to me, but still, like, people were just like, wow, I can't believe this guy. Every time I saw him, so nice.
Is that the one with a King Kong cover?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
They do really good covers.
They do.
Yeah, they do. That is true.
All right,
So
Eric.
my number 2, I'm going with Neural Code. We featured this on 4 Fusion Friday. Of course, I had no idea the guitar player had played with Megadeth. But really cool stuff. This was a one-off, I believe, George. But same thing. We did talk about them quite a bit. Had them in our Foursquare on 4 Fusion Friday. Just very cool stuff. If you're into guitar and fusion, I would check that out for sure. Neural Code.
My number 2, National Health. Pick whichever one you like. They're both great. I always have a hard time deciding which one of these I like better. Sometimes I go with the first, sometimes I go with the second. I don't know. They're both amazing. So great band, great, Canterbury band, but to me, they're just a really great jazz rock band. Awesome musicians, fantastic. If you haven't heard National Health, don't waste any time. Go out and do it. Back to Chad.
I wish they wouldn't sing.
Yeah. Very little.
That's what Eric always says.
Very little.
Keep bringing it in.
Yeah. All right, number 1. I'm going to go to Nathan Mall, Clever Use of Shadows.
Great choice.
Guy LeBlanc. Their second album. This is the one that that they had out in '98, right before Ken said, "Hey, you guys heard you need a replacement band. Why don't you check these guys out?" So we contacted them. They came down, and that was the beginning of the Sunday morning surprise, Prog Church, whatever you want to call it. And he blew everybody away at that first Near Fest on Sunday morning. Just great keyboards on this, good guitar, a lot of instrumental stuff. Guy sings every once in a while. He's not the best singer, but the instrumental stuff is so good on here. It's very much worth having. Clever Use of Shadows, Nathan Mall.
You guys ever hear their first album?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good too.
Yeah, all their albums are really solid. He was the nicest guy too.
Yes, he was.
He is. All right, so a little bit of trivia. Guy LeBlanc is the first musician I ever interviewed.
Really?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
How did he hook up with Camel? Do you guys know that?
Rob LaDuca.
Really?
Yep.
You guys were the connection?
Mhm.
Yeah, Rob was specifically.
All right, very
Yep.
cool.
He and the drummer.
I thought they were great. I love that record.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was the last I think they did, not in a wink, but I thought.
Yeah, I like that album a lot.
I do too.
Really strong band. Very cool. Great choice. I forgot all about that. And
All right, my number 3, third but not least, from Germany, Novalis. So Novalis,
Yeah.
you know Novalis, Luis?
Yeah, I have Lycanthrope by them. It's a good record.
Lycanthrope.
Especially that one.
Yeah.
They don't have an album called Lycanthrope. What are you?
I have an album called Novalis Lycanthrope, or maybe Lycanthrope
Oh.
Novalis.
No, what are you eating? Mushrooms down there in Mexico?
Not yet. But they are coming.
Oh, well, their first album was interesting. Their first album was in English, and then they decided screw that, and they sang in German throughout their career after the first album. Here, Luis, I'll hold it up for you again. So this is Summer Band, German symphonic rock, classic, very classically influenced, very keyboard heavy. They got a little more commercial towards the end. The songs got a little shorter. In fact, Heinz Frohling from Schickerfears Frohling had joined at one point. Detlef Job was the guitar player, if I remember correctly. And yeah, they were Lutz Rahn, keyboard player. Really, really good band. And long, epic 20-minute pieces. You know, Mellotron, Hammond organ, synthesizers, the whole bit. They threw the kitchen sink at you. And very, very successful. And if they would have sung in English, probably would have reached an audience outside of Germany. So, but they were as good as any of the other bands that were on the Brain label. And yeah, one of my favorites, Novalis.
I wanna clarify.
Sure.
You know, my stupidity has nothing to do with the fact that I haven't slept or that I took a red eye into Mexico.
No. It's a given. You're just stupid.
It's just constant. But the album I was talking about was by a band called Mangalavalis.
Yeah, all right.
So just
Yeah,
saying.
that was when we were doing the letter M.
That was a while back. It feels like it was yesterday, but
Must be those scorpions in his tacos that he ate like an apple.
It's hallucinogenic.
The venom's just getting to his brain now.
the wasp that stung me in the tongue.
They were okay, Mangalavalis. They were.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
They were kind of Spock's beardish.
Yeah.
I have that album too. That's good.
And not as good as Novalis.
Okay.
Chuck, what do you got for your favorite number one?
All right, my number one, is always going to be one of my favorite guitarists, solo. This is his third album, if I'm not mistaken. It's Bill Nelson, and it's Quit Dreaming and Get on the Beam. Bill Nelson. Right about this time, and so he was still in the guitar phase. After this album, he started becoming a bit more streamlined. Like his stuff started sounding a bit more like new wave-ish. He got away from the guitar virtuoism, and and then he just wound up but this is the album, like one of the last ones that he did, where you could actually still hear him like blazing on the guitar. Bill Nelson, and once again is Quit Dreaming and Get on the Beam. Bill Nelson.
The Great Bebop Deluxe.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Lewis.
All right. My favorite end band for today is going to be Necro Monkey. I don't know if you guys ever saw them play live, but it was a two-man band. It was Matthias Olsson and David Lundgren from Gosta Berling Saga. And those two guys could fill an entire room with unbelievable sound. The records are different from the live show. I don't think that any of the records really capture the live show as well as one would hope. Although my choice for people who never heard them would be an album by them called Show Me Where It Hurts. But Hurts is written like hurts for frequency as opposed to pain. They use a lot of electronic stuff, but also classic prog elements, a lot of mellotrons, a lot of acoustic instruments, a lot of chords. Anybody who knows Matthias also knows that when you tour with that guy, he will disappear for hours and suddenly show up with shit he found in a thrift store somewhere. And later that day, that stuff will end up on stage being used for the show. So I'm just saying it's how it is. But I love that band, and it was a surreal experience. I remember watching them in Chicago, and everybody was just in awe of that particular show. So it's too bad they broke up. They only did a few albums and a couple tours, and then they were done. But if you guys are not familiar with Necro Monkey, I know it's not the most sexy name. Well, I don't know. Maybe it is. I'm not judging, but it's a great band. I would highly recommend you check them out. Necro Monkey.
Cool. George.
My last N is from Georgia, a guy named Adam Nitty. I don't know if you know this guy, Lewis. One of the best bass players on the planet. He does everything: slap, tap, 6-string player, the whole shebang. Funky fusion stuff. He always has good players. This one's got Marco Miniman, Alex Argento, Marcos Fogli, Phil Keaggy, bunch of dudes on this one. And all of his records have guys like that. The last one had Jimmy Herring and Dave Weckl. I mean, but real consistent, upbeat fusion. Adam Nitty.
Cool.
Check it out.
Eric.
Hey, I'll keep things moving along quickly. National Health is my number one. And like Pete said, if you haven't heard them, check them out. Definitely quirky, different for sure, but worth a listen.
Don't sound like any of their peers. They don't sound like Caravan.
Agreed.
They don't sound like Hatfield in the North. They don't sound like any of their peers. Mhm.
I would agree. Steven's last
Gilgamesh.
name.
Gilgamesh. They sound a little like Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
A little.
Yeah,
And you get a little bit of Bill Bruford in there.
yeah. I would say Gilgamesh, Matching Mole, and National Health were probably somewhat similar. Some. All right, Steven's last pick in N is No Man, Together We're Stranger from 2003. That's the Steven Wilson, Tim Bonus.
Oh, that one coming.
And my number one is Nectar. I always have a hard time picking between Tab in the Ocean and Remember the Future. To me, those are their two absolute masterpieces, but they got a lot of really good albums. And as Ken said, great band. I've liked them for a long time, and can't go wrong with it, especially, I mean, even their latter stuff is really good, but those 70s albums are pretty damn strong. All right, Chad, you got any honorables before we move on?
Yeah, I got a couple. I'll whip through them real quick here. So the first one is a Greek space rock band, Nexatris. It's their 4th album. Ken introduced us all to this earlier in the year. Really cool stuff. Nebel Nest from France. Notice it's the Laser's Edge release, the first album.
Mark.
I will also go with Nectar, but I'm going to take Recycled. I love the addition of Larry Fast in there.
Yep.
Great.
And then from Argentina, Nexus.
Hmm.
They played near 2000. This is a great symphonic / neo band. And then Mill was on my list, same album as Luis mentioned. And I wanted to give mention to post-rock / prog band called North Atlantic Oscillation. Their album Grappling Hooks, their first album from 2010. They're actually from Scotland. Kind of cool stuff. That's my list.
Chad, something's going on with your audio. Is everybody else hearing
Yeah,
that?
you're in and out.
Yeah, we all were like kind of like
It's like fuzzy.
It's out of time too.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
that's for making fun of
Not sure.
REM.
Not sure what happened. You miss any of the picks?
Yeah, we could hear it, but it was kind of like fading and, you know.
Well, let's see it in the comments later.
My shirt, man.
All right.
Ken,
All right, we got a lot of repeats. I'll run through these quick. I got a bunch. This is one of George's favorites, I'm sure. Napalis. Guys, George, you know this album, right?
Yeah.
They were a Dutch one and done jazz rock band, kind of similar to Scope in some ways. Never came in on CD. Should be on CD. Somebody should be smart and put it on CD. I'm going to run through these alphabetically. From Italy, another great jazz rock band led by sax player James Sinise, Nali Central. They had a few strong albums, very, very good. We mentioned National Health, of course. We mentioned Nathan Mall. We mentioned Nebel Nest. We mentioned Nexus. None of you mentioned The Nice. How do you guys leave out The Nice? If it wasn't for The Nice, what would we have? These are one of the Godfathers.
you're in my honorable mentions.
Mhm.
All right. Next, I got a band that I put out, and some people, not necessarily myself, but some people say it's the best Canadian prog album of all time, Night Winds. This was, there we go. So
You needed a better singer, Ken.
Yeah, well, but music,
Yeah.
you didn't volunteer. And
No, they wouldn't want me. I didn't.
so, but they were, it just kind of sat on the shelf. We recorded in 79 and we put it out, what, 91.
How did you find this? Because it was never released, right?
Right. What happened was I was doing the Spirit of Christmas catalog. And the gentleman who owned it, guy was a mentor to me, Frank Davies. He owned the Daffodil label up in Canada, and he was in the music publishing business. And one of the guys that worked for him was, well, he had this band, keyboard player Gerald O'Brien, and his brother Terry O'Brien worked for him. Those guys were in Night Winds.
Right.
And he said, hey, I have access to this album. And the story of Night Winds was kind of crazy. They were a very successful cover band up in the Toronto area. They used to play, going to Buffalo, and they used to do originals and covers. And they were on Canadian television. And they had a guy who was managing them who apparently he ran with an unsavory crowd, so to speak. And the band was in the process of recording their album. And then one day somebody at a concert, somebody fired a gun at the stage. And the guy said, that's it, we're out of here. And the album was almost finished. It was mixed, but it wasn't a final mix. And with no band to release it, the album the tape sat in the studio since 1979. And so we worked out a deal and the studio got paid off. And Terry O'Brien came down, and I went to Bob Katz's house, I should say his mastering studio, and we worked on that thing for a couple of days and made it releasable. And that's, so that's how Night Winds came about. There was no artwork. It was a logo, and from the logo that they had, we created some artwork.
I like that cover, actually.
Yeah, no, it was actually kind of cool. I had the original hanging on my wall, but I had to give it back. I should have said it was lost. Yeah, and anyway, it was a great album. We did very well with it, and then the rights expired, and the guy who owns the rights, he's gone to the mists of time, and that's why it remains unreleased. I have one other end. Well, I should say I had Nucleus. I showed Nucleus, and then Nuova Era from Italy, who made some very, very good symphonic Italian prog albums, retro prog, a little bit of space to them, maybe a touch of Eloy in their sound. Very, very good. Those are my ends.
Cool. Chuck.
Right. Very quickly, we've all mentioned Nectar, same album, another great album. But
Like National Health.
from my National Health, forgive me. And then my Nectar is Down to Earth. Those are my only two. What's my only two honorables from the end?
Okay. Lewis.
Everybody's mentioned mine. I was gonna go with Nebel Nest, but I was not gonna mention Septo because I don't want my friend to have an aneurysm.
That's
So
right.
I was gonna.
Come down and kick your ass.
So I mean that much exertion. It's a big ass kid. I don't want you to get an aneurysm. So I think you guys touching all of them. There you go. No, none of that, please.
George.
A couple have already been said. I would say Neural Code. I would, of course, also say National Health. And I'll mention one band that I don't think is prog, but I know a lot of people consider them prog, which is Nevermore. I think they're a fantastic band, but I don't hear the prog that other people do. But I figure I'll mention them because someone in the comments will say they're prog. So there you go.
Great band. I would agree. Yeah, not prog, but yeah, great band.
Yeah, wait till we get to O.
Eric.
Quick, I'll give another nod to Ken's Laser's Edge with Night Winds. I really like the music on that, Ken. I really did. The singer to me just kind of wasn't on par with the band. Sammy Singers too.
Sammy Singers, yeah.
Yep. And then this is a band I just saw open for Kick the Cat. And Pete, I think they're from Hudson Valley area. NEQ. More rock than prog, but they were instrumental. I thought they were really good. I picked it up. I've only gotten a couple listens in. Really enjoyed them live. But check them out if they're playing around you at all. It looks like that from what I read about them. I think they're down your way. So
Yeah, never heard of him. Cool. Stevens one honorable for N is a band called Never Awake from the US, progressive metal band, and the album is Underground. And let's see, who do I have here that has not been mentioned? Keyboard extraordinaire Eric Norlander. He's got some good solo stuff, as well as, you know, he's in Rocket Scientist and Lana Lane, but I like his solo stuff as well. Fantastic player and a hell of a nice guy. So Eric Norlander.
Yes.
This band may not be prog. They're more like pomp, but they got enough kind of cool keyboards and things. New England. Discovered by Gene Simmons or Paul Stanley, one of the two of them from Kiss, but very cool band who's yeah, they're kind of like pop rock, right? They're kind of like AOR, a lot of they're kind of like Angel to me. They got like all these keyboards and very like kind of like a lot of good pop hooks and stuff like that. So
I think it was Paul Stanley, Peaks. I think he produced the record, right?
I think so. Yeah, I knew it was one of the two of them. Yeah.
Well,
Or Stanley Eisen. I'm sorry, Ken.
Stanley from Kiss.
Stanley Eisen. Yes, forgot.
From Kiss. I hate that band.
Really? What a surprise. Let's see. Italian band, The Night Watch.
They became the Watch.
Became the Watch. Yeah, originally they were the Night Watch and became the Watch. So I figured I could squeeze them in here. Let's see. I got the Nice, Neutrals already mentioned. Here's a cool band. This is a Swedish band. Also, again, sort of prog, sort of kind of like melodic rock, Nightingale. That is the band of Dan Swano, who's very well known in the Swedish extreme metal side of things. He's done a lot of death metal projects. He was in Edge of Sanity, and he was in a bunch of other different bands. And he's also a very well-known producer as well. Nightingale is his melodic kind of proggy band. Very, very good. And the last one, another German band. This is the band that almost made my top three. I believe they only have the one album. Neuschwanstein.
Oh,
What?
You know, they actually had another album.
Did they?
I didn't know about it. I think it just got reissued again with the singer from Curved Air, Sonia Christina.
Sonia Christina, yeah.
Yeah, some sort of collaboration with them, and I think it was from like 76 or something like that. I don't know.
No idea.
I don't know. Anyway, I think it just got a CD reissue.
Okay, but their first album, Battlements, is
I don't know. It's a good album.
terrific album if you love like Lamb Lies Down on Broadway era Genesis.
Yeah,
Like,
that was one of the best albums that Genesis never recorded.
exactly. Yeah, it sounds so much like them. It's uncanny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that almost made my top three, but I was like, God, I only thought they had the one album. I was like, let me put Nice and then but I didn't want to do a tie because we don't have much here. So, all right, well, let's switch gears and move over to O. So back to Chad.
All right. We can finally mention them. And that's the classic Italian Leone. And I'm going to go with Bologna Serena. Talked about many times. But absolute classic Italian. Don't know this one. You don't know nothing.
Ken.
Well, I'll join the team. Leone. I mean, they were of the O's. This is the band. So they changed gears. They added a guitarist midway through. I don't like the albums quite as much. But then they changed gears again. They did a couple of beautiful acoustic albums. And they went pop.
Florian?
Hmm?
Was it called Florian?
It was Florian.
Yeah, it was really good.
And I'm having a brain fart because it was the one after Florian. And then, then they resurfaced years later with a kind of reconstituted lineup, and they were a full-on prog band again. But for me, they had a lot of great albums. One with the Payas is great, but Bologna e Serona, for me, this is the one. So that's my first O.
Well, we're gonna make that 3 in a row, but I'm gonna go with Uomo di Piazza instead.
Great album.
Mhm. The Leorm, great band, man. Just one of those amazing Italian bands, man. Mhm.
Great singer.
Great
singer.
great
Great
drummer.
singer.
Great drummer.
Great everything.
Great everything. Yep.
But-
If you like
but
a
that-
keyboard, if you like a keyboard called the Mellotron, if you guys have ever heard of it, there's a
Yeah.
lot of it on. There's a lot of it. on their albums. Did we offend?
Chad certainly just got disintegrated by the mention of Mellotron.
He caught George's disease.
Maybe he's trying to do it upset.
I see.
Oh,
Lewis. Lewis, you're up.
Oh, sorry. I'm gonna also go with Leorme because I'm a great joiner inner, but I'm gonna pick Contrapunti
Contrapunti.
because I just love that record. That was my entry point. Objectively, I think their best one is Verona Sorona, but the one I liked the most is that first one that I heard because I wasn't expecting it to be that good and it just kicked my ass. So
A great body of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. George.
First one's from a band called Octavision. So far, this is the only one, 2020. Brainchild of the guitar player, Hovak Alder, I don't know. It's some kind of foreign name. Hovak is the guy's name. It's largely instrumental, kind of a cross between Dream Theater and Symphony X instrumentally. There's 2 vocal songs with Jeff Scott Soto on them that to me are better than most of the Sons of Apollo stuff, but in that line. And bass playing duties are split on this album between Victor Wooten and Billy Sheehan. So that's,
nice.
yeah, check it out. Octavision.
Wow. I'm gonna have to buy that.
Yeah, another one, Pete.
Yeah.
You got to get this.
Octavism.
Yeah, I used to sell that. It was a good album.
Nice. A lot of good recommendations today.
Yeah.
Eric, what do you got?
Hey, my number 3 for O, this is a band that made me very happy when I heard they were forming. 2 members of Happy the Man, Oblivion Sun. This
Yes.
is their debut from, I believe, 2007.
Great
Uh,
album.
Little more
Great album.
vocal oriented. Obviously, Happy the Man was mostly instrumental. They had a lot more vocals. Stanley Whitaker singing, Frank Wyatt, the other member of Happy the Man that's playing with them. I do believe, I know Chad disappeared. They were at Nearfest. I didn't go the year they played. But
They
if
have
you like what's that, Lewis?
the great drummer Chris Mack.
Chris Mack. I don't remember who they ended up with, though. I know they had 3, I believe, during their run.
I think Chris Mack played on the album.
Okay. On that first one. But great band. If you like Happy the Man, just there's a little more vocals than what you'd hear on a Happy the Man album.
For good vocals.
That's my
Yeah.
number 3 is Oblivion.
Good-
Yeah,
good-
Stan
good-
sounds pretty good.
Mhm.
He impressed me because I didn't think the Happy the Man vocal stuff was all that strong, but I thought he sounded pretty good here.
All right. What does Steven got here? Steven's got a band called Orpheus Blade. The album's called Wolf's Cry, Israeli progressive metal. This is
Wow.
the description. And
They just played.
did they?
Max, what's her name? Maggie Luyton, who's singing with the Morgable guys in this band called The Prize. I only know because I follow Maggie on Facebook. I guess she guested with them and she flew to Israel and performed with them.
Oh, well, okay. Very cool. Well, I'm going to join the Leorme love. Since I tried to do them a couple weeks ago, we'll do it officially right this time. Yeah, I mean, all the albums that have been mentioned by them so far are masterpieces. So, but this one to me is clearly their best, and it's romantic. It's great keyboards, great vocals, guitars, drums, the whole thing. And it's so moving and emotional. So that's my first choice. I don't know. Chad's still having issues, I guess.
You want me to go and then
Yeah, we'll
Zoom
circle back.
freezing.
It says that Zoom keeps freezing. Well, he's a beheaded fucking thing. Look at him. I mean, I'm sorry, but come on, Chad. Talk about preempting your own demise.
All right, Ken, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so my next band, I'll save the obvious one for last. You know what? Screw it. I'll go with the obvious one now. Ozric Tentacles. So basically heavily influenced by Teapot trilogy Gong. They kind of stole the sound without the vocals. And one of the great space rock bands. I guess they're not really together anymore. I don't know if it's a rights issue, but Ed Wynn is just putting stuff out under his own name, and it kind of sounds like Ozric Tentacles. But for me, the earliest stuff is the best. When they had
Yep.
Joey Hinton playing keyboards, Mert Pepler on drums. Great band. One of the best concerts I ever saw was their first show in the United States at Wetlands, 3 hours, and I don't think there was a person in the place that wasn't totally baked. It was a great show, and
Especially on stage.
oh my God, those guys
Yeah.
came out. They did 2 sets, and the second set was delayed, and there was like finally there's this big waft of smoke, that came out of the back. Oh my God,
Yeah.
it was smoking joints that looked like macanudos. I mean, it was ridiculous. But really, and I've seen them many times. Very nice guys. Great band, Osric Tentacles.
One of my and all the near fests I went to, they were one of the highlights, I think. Great.
He's back.
Back. All right, Chad,
Hey!
you're up, Chad. Oh,
It's your turn, Chad.
That's kind of good timing. I don't want to hear about all your shit anyway.
You missed out on the Macanudos.
All right. Well, my number 2 O band is Opeth, and I've got to go with Pale Communion. This one hit me really hard. I don't like any of the early stuff. The Cookie Monster vocals keep me out. I can't do it. I know some people love it. I can't do it. They hooked me a little bit with oh geez, I just lost the name of the album. Damnation, sorry. And then when this came out, someone said, check it out. It doesn't have the growly vocals, but it's still kind of heavy, and it's heavy and it's proggy and the vocals are great. And I bought everything that does not have a Cookie Monster vocals on it. But for me, Pale Communion is pinnacle. This is a phenomenal album.
Chuck.
Osibisa. Mhm.
That's a really
My
good.
number 2. Mhm. A great African band. I wish I could have seen them back in the 70s, man. I heard them stories about them opening up for bands like Yes and ELP, and these guys were awesome in Europe, man. I would have loved to have seen them. But all I have is just memories of their great albums, and that's one of their great albums. Osibisa or Woyaya.
Chuck, is there a band that you could compare them to?
What's it?
African Santana. That's what how
Yeah,
I
probably. Yeah, that's what I would say, because you can't, because they're not Afrobeat, so you can't compare them to Fela Kuti. But that's the only thing I could think about, probably a bit more Africanish sounding. What's that? Santana, without the Latin grooves, but just a funky, groovy band, man. Osibisa. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those first 3 or 4 albums are
amazing. The covers too.
Oh yeah, the covers are amazing. Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Roger Dean for 2 of them, and then I forget the other guy who drew the couple after that are all great. Yeah. Lewis.
Okay, so for the people who don't know, before we go in the air, we have a little chat, and I have a compulsion to always own up when I fuck up. And you didn't know I fucked up, but I'm going to reveal it anyway, because that's just the kind of guy that I am. So when we were talking about it, I was telling these guys that I received a CD from Juanjo Salas from Luna Negra. It's a band that I really loved. That record just blew me away. It's from Orvalians, and I thought it was a 2022 record. But after fucking up royally with that other Mangalavales thing or whatever that was called, they decided to fucking check. And it's not a 2022 record, it's a 2017 record. Nonetheless, that is my number 2 choice. It's called The Great Filter. It's amazing. Pete, you may hate it because it is certainly at some points influenced by Magma, but it's also, I'm just saying that this record is fucking amazing, and I cannot recommend it enough.
I'll
Those
do
of us who don't
I'll do you a
dislike
solid,
Magma,
Lewis.
I
I'll
was-
listen to it at least.
Yeah, give it a shot. And as soon as the Magma chants start, you can just prick my voodoo doll. But it'll be good. I think it's a great record. If you guys don't know.
Louis, it looks like you're sitting in the doctor's waiting room. Where are you?
Oh, I can explain that also. If you notice behind me, there are these really arcade Jewish Kabbalistic posters.
Yeah.
I am in my mother's house.
Oh,
And my mother is not Jewish, but she spent years studying in the synagogue here, one of the synagogues in Mexico City, and she learned a lot of this stuff from them. I don't know how the hell she weaseled her way in, because as you know, your tribe is very hermetic.
yeah.
But I'm not sure, she somehow convinced them, and she learned from them. So this
That's
is
cool.
where she teaches all this stuff, and yeah,
That's great. Why don't
so-
you buy her a painting?
Oh, because I'm broke. But I buy her other things. I just fixed her washing machine. I paid for it. I'm not handy enough to fix it. I
Good
paid
son.
for the guy to
You're a
repair.
very good son.
Lewis said to her this afternoon, he goes, Ma, I buy you a painting for that wall, but I just bought the new Magma CD.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, he bought his mom the new Magma CD. First.
No, here's another trivia about me. My mother is one of these annoying humans with perfect pitch. And when I was a kid growing up, one of the things that used to make me go insane is that she would only listen to classical music and only at a volume that she and her dog could enjoy. It was there, but not there. It was like a ghost of classical music that permeated the house. So, it's just one of those things. I think she would dislike Magma even more than Pete does. And since I do love my mother and she's 85, I don't want to pummel her eardrums with Magma, but if she annoys me, I may.
Did any of your parents listen to music?
My father, he
Little
was
bit.
big into music.
Not much.
My,
I got a lot of
parents
Neil
used-
Diamond.
My parents used to listen to like Robert Goulet, Stephen Eady Gourmet.
My father liked stuff like that. My father's very open-minded. Growing up, he had all types of records at home, and so my father also loved classical music. Is very much into Tchaikovsky, Chopin. We would listen to that as kids. There were 6 of us. Wanted to make sure that we weren't like going crazy in the house trying to kill each other. Put some classical music on and nice and peaceful.
You see, my mother was so strict that only classical. We're talking Beethoven was like as far, or Brahms. Like if you start getting into Tchaikovsky or Shostakovich, forget it. That was not going to happen. It had to be very square melodies. It had to be rhythm is an afterthought. It would have to be that kind of a thing.
The most progressive thing my parents had was maybe Sergio Mendes in Brazil '66.
Hey, I'll say my dad had a Jethro Tull album. He had Stand Up.
Nice.
Oh, no. No, I'm sorry. He had War Child. Sorry.
That's
War Child.
impressive.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
That's
That's
pretty
really
good.
good.
Yep.
Yeah.
What went wrong with you?
I have it. I've never spun it.
That's
I have
Might
the
as well-
record in the other room.
I was a kid, I asked my parents about Jethro Tull, and they were like, who's that? I never heard of him.
Yeah.
That's where that conversation went.
Starts.
Asher, what's your next pick for Asher?
What is it, buddy? He says they're from Australia. Band called On the Verge. It's right up your alley, Eric. This is Planet X before Planet X. It's Donati's band over there, all Australian dudes. Came out in '99. Guest spots by Brett Garcid, TJ Helmerich, and Rick
Nice.
Versace. It's just total Planet X style, which no surprise, Donati writes all this. He wrote most of Planet X. So you want another Planet X album? On the Verge.
On the Verge.
We'll go shopping.
There you go. A lot of shopping tonight, right, Eric?
Yeah.
All right, Eric, what do you got?
For my number 2, Chad, could you repeat what you said about Opeth? Because that is my story. Although Damnation is the one that hooked me, and I absolutely love that record. Absolutely love it. It's still my favorite. I started with Watershed, though, which I believe had 1 or 2 growly sections, but even that hooked me. I pulled Sorceress off my shelf quickly today, but without a doubt, Damnation is my absolute favorite by them. I love that. It's beautiful. I know, Lewis, you always talk about stuff that you sit and listen to and could make you cry.
Yeah.
that's just, the music is beautiful on that record.
There it is.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yes, it is.
Michael has an amazing melodic voice.
Yep, absolutely.
He's a
It's,
pretty good songwriter, man.
Yeah, he has a very, his harmonies, his choices of chord sequences are very original.
Yeah.
He's
And
a
we-
very sharp guy.
We actually had a conversation with him about playing Nearfest at one point. It's just the timing didn't work out.
Wow, that would have been cool.
yeah, that would have been killer.
Yeah,
Sorcerer is a
Especially-
really good album. That's a it's
it's a masterpiece.
Well, I'll talk about it in a little bit, but
Yeah.
I have a hard time with the catalog because I love both ends of the catalog. And so like when I'm trying to pick like my favorite album by them, I'm like, well, I got a favorite album from the death metal side, and I have a favorite album from,
The prog side.
the prog and hard rock side. So it's hard for me sometimes to like mesh them together because they are quite different, right? And I feel so strongly about both, but I'm not going to talk about them yet. I'm going to talk about Osric Tentacles first. Strangitude, I guess, is my favorite. I don't know. Like Ken said, a lot of their early albums are really, really strong. This is just great stuff. Great space rock. It's energetic. It's fiery solos. It's not too noodly like this. It's just really, really good. He's such a great guitar player. There's great keys on these. And I was saying, I think, Chad, you were off having the computer issues at the time, but Osric's were one of my favorite performances at all the Nearfests that I went to. I think they were just amazing. And I think I was pretty drunk during their performance as well, but that always kind of helps a little bit. But
It helps a lot with,
Yeah.
with the Osrics.
yeah, the only time in Nearfest where being drunk didn't help when it was like the last band or two, and I'm falling asleep in the chair, because that happened a few times where we would go out on dinner break and just rip it up and pound like 6 beers in an hour, and then by the time I remember, I think it was the second time IQ played, I like woke up halfway through their set and I'm like, yeah, this is kind of pathetic, but it happens.
Shame on IQ for a pathetic set.
They were great. I just,
Mhm.
I remember I interviewed them too, like earlier in the day, and I was like, yeah, I'm so excited to see you guys again. This is gonna be great, and then they're all playing. I'm like, oh, awesome.
Controversial opinion. I know you guys love the Osrics, and I also know that must be true that without the Osrics, Idria Spacefolk wouldn't exist. But to me, Idria Spacefolk just blow them off the stage.
Those guys.
Yeah, I mean those Osrics. Like, I need to be massively stoned. Otherwise, it's just I can't deal with Edwin and his girlfriend, wife, whatever she is. I just can't do it. Just me.
Hydra Space Folk was a little more varied in their
Yeah, I would
sounds.
I was going to say the same thing.
They were great and
Osric's,
fun guys.
Osric's are kind of one-dimensional, but that one dimension
It's
is an
potent.
incredible place to be.
Steven's next one is Orphan Land, the great Israeli Middle Eastern progressive metal band, and he picked the Never Ending Way of Ore Warrior as his album, and I would agree. I think that's their best one as well. So good stuff. All right,
Nice.
final pick, Chad. What do you got?
I think I'm going to switch places with you there, Pete. And my number one is going to be Osric Tentacles, but I'm going with Jurassic Shift. Again, one of the early ones. This was my first one. I still love this one. Great grooves like Vita Boom, Sun Hair's awesome. Jurassic Shift is great. Top to bottom, great one. So Jurassic Shift, Osric Tentacles.
Yeah, I almost picked that one. That's also one of my favorites. Good one. Ken.
Okay. Going back to Italy, my number one band, Osana. So this was actually kind of cool. I found this copy in Little Italy in Manhattan, going through a bin, and you figured, you're not going to find anything. It's like 2000, the year 2000. Stores have been picked over. I was like an Italian gift store, and they had records, and it was just sitting there for like $8. It was an original first pressing. Anyway, Osana was a very interesting band. They actually are the band that gave Peter Gabriel the idea to do the face paint. As you can see for the album cover, they all had their faces painted. And the story is that when Genesis went to Italy to play, I believe Osana perform with them, open for them, or they saw Osana perform, and Gabriel stole the idea from Lino Veretti, the leader of the band. So that's the legend.
You didn't get it from Kiss?
Not everything goes back to
Kiss,
Kiss.
Kiss only
That
gave
sucks.
people herpes.
That Kiss band sucks. You should just get them out of your mind. So this was 1971, and Gabriel didn't start to wear the face paint till what, 72? I guess it was. So they started out kind of Tull influenced, a lot of flute. They're kind of a harder edge to their sound, little Zeppelin mixed in, and then they got more sophisticated. They did the soundtrack to Italian gangster film Milano Calibrio #9, and then their masterpiece is one called Polypoli, which is just like 2 sidelong pieces, a lot of keyboards, just more complex. Great band. Osana.
I wonder if that was the tour that first tour of Italy they did with Van der Graaf and Lindisfarne, Ken, that they maybe
It could be.
because that
Yeah,
was
so-
I think in 71.
And maybe like the Piper Club or something like that, one of those locations. And yeah, see, they all had, I think you could see it, but they were into makeup and stuff. And yeah, they did it first. Osana.
Cool, great pick, Chuck.
All right, well, I'm going to be one of those that's going to pick Osric Tentacles again. And once again, Jurassic Shift is that album. Which is the first album that I bought from them and the first time that I saw them live too. That's an amazing experience when you get to see them in an intimate club, man. These guys, man, what's it like you said, if you're not a stoner, man, you'll leave there stoned, man.
Well, Ken, if you remember, you and I saw them at TLA in Philly, and their sound was so bad that you and I left.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it wasn't the band's fault. It was the sound guy. I don't know if he was in-house or with them, but God, he was destroying their stuff.
Was
You
that-
couldn't hear Ed Wynn do anything.
Was that when Ronnie Montrose was opening up?
I don't believe so. That doesn't sound familiar.
Because I remember seeing Osric at the TLA with Montrose, Ronnie Montrose opening up.
Wow.
I don't remember that.
He had just come out. Didn't Ronnie Montrose have an album on like that No Speak label, or I don't know? He had put out like some instrumental solo album, and he was out touring for it, and he opened for the Osrics at the TLA.
Cool.
What did we do? We went to Jim's for cheesesteaks.
I don't remember that either. I hope you bought me dinner. That's all I gotta say.
I'm sure I did. I mean,
It's the hot, man.
sure I did.
All right, Lewis, you're number one.
My number one can only be Opeth. And every record in the catalog to me is either solid or just fucking awesome. However, I think that if I had to pick one as my favorite Opeth record, the one that kind of has it all, I would have to pick Ghost Reveries.
Thank you.
That record is just, it's flawless.
Yep.
And I know people like to shit on the Cookie Monster vocals, and I understand why. And I'm not, all I'm gonna say though is that even though many people may think they're all the same thing, they're really not. And when Michael Eckerfeld does the growls, he's in tune. And that is important to me. Because if the band is playing something and the guy is just like farting into a microphone, that creates a different sense than if a guy is actually doing the music and leading the leading voice in the music, right? So to me, frankly, the growls is just like adding a lot of distortion to a guitar. It doesn't piss me off. It's an effect. I don't think that he takes it seriously, like many of the fans probably did. But I just love the finished product of Opeth. The progressive death metal is just so unique, so original. I fucking love it. I encourage people who've never heard them. Just check them out. You can check with some of the more recent albums because they're not going to piss you off with. They may piss you off with their Swedish singing in the latest one, but they're not going to piss you off with the death growls. But I would suggest you give it a shot, and then say you hate it. Like if you hate Opeth death growls, and you really listen to it, and then it's really not for you, and that's the end. No more debate, right? But this guy does it like nobody else I've ever heard. And I take my hat off to him. He's a fucking genius, and he does great work. So, you know. And if you ever see, have you guys seen, he does this YouTube interview where they ask him what he's buying at Amoeba Records.
That's very cool. Yeah.
The guy has a great record collection, and he's got great stories. He's kind of like Ken. He has a lot to say about all kinds of these weird old 70s records. So it's really fun. You learn a lot. So you can also.
He has a varied taste too. You'd be surprised
Yes.
with the albums that he listened to. Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye.
Yes.
He's very big. Otis Redding.
And I love that he has one rule. He will never listen to an album that has the word boogie in it.
So that means that he's never listened to Stevie Wonder's.
Yeah. If he sees the word boogie, that's a deal breaker. He's out. Very funny. But yeah.
George.
Number one is Ohm, California.
Nice.
Former Megadeth guitar player Chris Poland's jazz rock trio. All three guys have a definite identity to their playing. 4 albums, high quality jazz rock. Check them out. Ohm.
Great pick. Eric.
Same. I love Chris Poland. And I had 2 Megadeth guitar players in my list tonight. So there you go. I like that this, and again, I think we say this a lot. I had this before George. So this is actually a pre-George pick. But this is the first thing I ever heard from them. And I know we say that a lot. For some reason, it's the one that sticks with me all the time. But I think Chris Poland's phrasing, and I don't know a lick that he played with Megadeth as far as I know. Maybe I do. But I love his playing on this. I think he's just an amazing player. His phrasing is gorgeous. And the band does not sound like a trio to me. I don't know what's going on in there, but they get a lot done with 3 guys.
Overdubs.
I don't know. The live stuff sounds pretty, obviously, but the live stuff just sounds like they're a killer band for a trio.
Yeah.
Not that, but again, Chris Poland, he's one of my favorites altogether. I just love him. So that's my number one is Ohm.
That's my number one honorable mention. I would say, Eric, go and listen to Peace Sells, but Who's Buying by Megadeth. You probably know 1 or 2 songs on there, but his playing is breathtaking on that album. Even though it may not, thrash might not be your thing, it's worth listening to just to hear his guitar work on there, and the riffs are just incredible. So, all right, my number one, like Lewis said, can only be Opeth. I picked Blackwater Park today. I could pick, any other of their albums tomorrow because I love all of them. I think the only album in their catalog that I probably would put a little below the others is the debut, Orchid. That's really good too, but most of the others border on genius. I also agree that Michael's growling vocals, which he doesn't do anymore and hasn't done for almost a decade now, or about a decade, were some of the best in the business because they perfectly fit the music. You can pretty much understand everything he's saying, which there's a lot of death metal singers out there, which is like, and it's like, what the hell is that, right? I like guys who at least try to growl so you can understand what they're saying. Michael, I think, was the best in the business at it. I guess he just got tired of doing it after a while. His clean melodic voice is amazing. Like, he is such a great melodic singer. He's a great guitar player. He's a great songwriter. One of the things that, and they were the first death metal band I ever got into. And one of the reasons why is because I could not deny how great the music was. I mean, this mix of like folk and hard rock and prog and extreme metal, these acoustic passages that then just turn into these booming, big doomy death metal riffs, and the blazing twin guitars and the incredible drumming, the mellotron. It's just like, so good.
The things I love his progressive rock influences, Camel and Jethro Tull.
Yep.
So that always makes me happy.
Album.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, he listens.
stuff.
You mentioned him buying the records. If you watch those episodes, he goes and buys all these really obscure, like British and European folk and prog albums and all this stuff. I mean, he's into
Always.
all this nerdy stuff. He loves all the underground, like heavy rock bands from the 70s. So like a lot of times I'm like, because I have a lot of obscure shit like that too. And I'll watch one of those episodes. I'm like, how does he know about that band too? I thought I was the only guy who knew about that, but he's he's got really great taste in music, and he's a really funny guy. And also it's great when you go see them live and he talks to the audience in between every song. He tells jokes, he like cuts on people in the audience and stuff. It's just, he's got a lot to say, very intelligent, very witty guy. And O is Opeth for me.
Michael is the reason I got into Comus. Because he talked about them at a fucking show.
Mhm.
And after every song, he would somehow link it to a Comus thing. And I thought, well, now I have to fucking hear it, right?
If he's talking
What a
about-
record, right? What a record that was.
It's almost electric goatish in vocals.
Yes.
And Steven's number one is Opeth as well. He picked Still Life from 1999, which is a terrific album as well.
Fantastic.
But Ghost Reveries, Watershed, Still Life, My Arms, Your Hearse, Sorceress, Chad's Pick. I mean, all the new ones have been. The last one was really, really good.
In Cada Venenum.
Oh
Love
yeah,
that one.
really good. We know whether you like the Swedish version or the English version. It's just such a great band. Really cool band. All right, so let's circle back around for some quick honorable mentions. Chad, what do you got? Any?
All right, yeah, I got three. From France, Magma Offshoot, One Shot.
Nice.
Some fusion action there with Ewaz Vader. That's their first one.
That's actually really good. Actually, I can listen to that.
Yeah,
There's no singing.
There's no Cobain nonsense.
Yeah.
Right. I'll also throw Omen there, first one. And I give a nod to the first OSI album. Mike was a Portnoy. I forget who was it. Portnoy and who's the guitar player from
Kevin
Jim
Moore from
Matthews,
Dream
right?
Theater. Kevin Moore from Dream
Kevin
Theater.
Moore and Jim Matthews.
Jim
Matthews, yeah.
Yep. Yep. So the first OSI album, Office of Strategic Intelligence, pretty cool album. They're my three honorable mentions.
Ken.
Alphabetically, a lot of repeats. Ohm, a band that I think George probably knows. They German jazz rock band, fusion band. They made 2 albums. Octagon. George, are you hip to these guys?
I'm surprised I've never heard of them.
1980. This is their first one. Second one, I think 81. Very, very good. Then I had, well, we weren't going to talk about him, but I'm going to talk about him only because I love his music, and he would have been in my top 3, but on principle, I won't mention. I won't mention.
We all know.
We all know.
We know.
We know. I won't mention. We got One Shot. We got Opeth. We like Opeth. A band that, well, prog guys should check out. Oregon.
Yes.
Oh yes, yes.
Acoustic band, incredible musicians, Ralph Towner,
Phenomenal.
Paul
Phenomenal
Canlis, Glenn Moore, Paul McCandless, and the late Colin Walcott.
Mhm.
You want to dazzle your friends, Out of the Woods, cut by Bob Ludwig.
Yep.
Extraordinary sounding album.
Mhm.
A lot of great sounding albums. Another obscure band made 2 albums. They were an offshoot from the band Reverend Bizarre. Orne. You guys know Orne? Retro kind of doom prog. Really, that was good shit. It's good stuff. And then the last one, which was a one and done by a guy who I think was actually an author named Hervé Picard. He did this album with Richard Pinhas from Helden, Ose, Adonia. I tried to reissue this on CD about 25 years ago. Could never get it to happen. Only came out on the Egg label, and Picard was playing all the keyboards, playing guitars, a lot of Moogs, what have you. And Pinhas also typical Helden kind of thing, playing all the Moogs and guitars, and very much like a Helden album. Ose had Poseidonia. And that's what got, O was kind of not, O was like, not a lot. So, yeah, that's,
I love your Oregon pick. I generally don't gravitate towards kind of like jazz fusion, like acoustic like that. It's really not even fusion. It's kind of like this like chamber rock.
It's like a folk.
Yeah.
and it also had, it's
Beautiful
like a
music.
world, with them, there's like a world music element. They
Yes.
touch on a lot of ethnic elements. Colin Walcott passed away. I got to see them. I only saw them one time. It was a benefit for Colin Walcott, and he was the percussionist who was killed. He was hit by a car and crossing the street, and he was replaced by Trilok Gertu. And there was a benefit show in New York City. It was a marathon concert, and that was the first performance of Oregon with Trilok Gertu. And yeah, a lot of world music flavors, a lot of improvisation. Just these guys are just top of the class musicians, and yeah, just great. I mean, if you want to take it one step further, listen to some of the albums they did for ECM and Colin Walcott's solo albums for ECM. They're total mind fucks. They're albums like you just put them on, you shut off the lights, and you just get immersed in it. It's just extraordinary stuff.
Yeah, I love Towner's playing. He's a magician on the guitar.
Yep.
And they
Absolutely.
woodwinds flying all over the place. Yeah.
Mhm.
All of them, all their solo work, and then collectively together. You know, I know an album I almost pulled out that they did was actually shouldn't work, but was a collaboration they did with Elvin Jones, and
Yes.
it's kind of a nice album. But world class band, and yeah, I think Prague fans should open up their minds and listen to Oregon. I think they'd enjoy it.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Especially that album. Mhm.
That's a big ass Ken.
I know. They had a real, and the thing about, if you collect vinyl, you could always find Oregon albums in the bins cheap. They have a great double live album, which is a good entree to the band. You could always find for like $5 somewhere. Yeah, yeah, particularly if you're into good sound, go look for the albums that Bob Ludwig cut for them. They're state of the art.
Cool. Chuck.
Oysterhead, Grand Pecking Order.
Nice.
Mhm. And then my last one would make our good buddy Mr. Lewis over here happy. Boingo from Oingo Boingo.
Yes.
Mhm. What's that? You can't tell me that Insanity is not Prague. Mhm.
I'm ashamed I didn't pick them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What's that? They were more Prague than people would ever think that they were. Mhm.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with you, but I would never classify them as a progressive.
No,
rock.
no, they're not a prog band. They're very similar to XTC, and Split Ends. These guys were art rock bands, but they had their prog moments. Mhm.
A wackier.
Mhm. Yes, yes.
I mean, that's just what a band. What a fucking band.
Awesome band.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Mhm. So those are my two picks.
Lewis.
I have 4. Everybody's mentioned Ohm. I just want to throw some love to Amino Acid Flashback. I actually love that album. So I want to mention that. I also want to mention again the Oblivion Song debut.
Mhm.
I love that record.
Same here.
And big shout out to my friend Chris Mack, but also just the music is just so good, that record.
I love that album. Mhm.
A record that I really liked a lot, and it didn't make my top 3 because I really don't find myself listening to it anymore for many years, is OSI Blood. That was my favorite of the OSI records. Blood. I think that has Gavin Harrison, which would have made our boy in the yellow hoodie very, very, very happy, but he's not here, so he doesn't get to hear me say nice things about his hero. And,
Out of sight, out of mind.
correct. And finally, I would like to give a shout out to a band called Ocean Size. Ocean Size is a strange phenomenon, but I think prog people would dig them. I would recommend one album in particular for people who want to get into them. It's an album called Efflorescence. And I would suggest for people who really prog like the prog head to start with a track. It's an instrumental track called Women Who Love Men Who Love Drugs.
Alrighty then.
Just listen to that shit. It's it's an English band. They're fantastic. Ocean Size, Fluorescence, Women Who Love Men Who Love Drugs. Listen to that song. They're great. So that's it for me.
All right. George.
It's got a couple English band called Optimistic Visionaries, jazz rock band. They we reviewed the last CD on the channel. Can't remember the keyboard player's name now, but he's playing in the Reformed Coliseum, I believe. Nick something. I wish I could remember it. Also, European band, Organic Reaction. I know Ken knows this one. It's, good prog metal. I only have the last one. I do believe there's more, but yeah, Organic Reaction. Check them out.
Eric.
All right, I'll be quick. I'll take the Osrics as well. Erpland is my favorite. And I'm gonna cheat, but I always bang on vocals. And this is a band that, although they're more pop oriented than prog, very lush, very ethereal, October Project. And I love the vocals on these records. Absolutely love them.
I would say they slip into the prog category. You can get away with it.
I'll take it. If you say so, Ken, it's good then.
Yeah.
I
give you
just, I
Give me
love
a
the
pass
vo-
on that one.
I love the vocals on those records.
I would call them like an art rock band.
Art rock, okay.
That's what I would call
All right, let's see. What has not, all right, so we, Ohm, Osana, Orphan Land, I had them on my list as well. How about Omega?
Yeah.
Two
No
really
idea.
good albums, I think, out of their discography. Very cool band from the 70s. Greek, right? Weren't they a Greek band?
them. Hungarian.
Hungarian, that's right. Yeah, that's right. German band called Orange Peel, kind of like a progressive hard rock band. And Orangutan.
On Bell Records.
Yes, really great oddity. Very kind of Deep Purple, Uriah Heep-ish sort of Fuzzy Duck, if you like that sort of thing.
I love
There was
Fuzzy
another,
Duck.
there was another band like that. You ever hear Rumpelstiltskin?
Yes.
Another band, a US kind of hard rock, sort of proggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very good.
I'm surprised you didn't say Overkill.
No. Not Prague. If we were talking metal, might even be, well, it'd be top three for sure. Yeah, I love Overkill. Not,
That's pretty shoo-in, right?
yeah, pretty much. All right, so there you have it, everybody. N and O. Next week, we're gonna deviate from the alphabet one more time for a fun show. I'm not sure who will have. I know Lewis, you're gonna be on tour, right? But
I won't be here next week.
so for the folks that are here, I don't know if I announced this one yet, but we're also doing this on Hudson Valley Squares next week. So everybody's going to put together a list of 10 bands, 9 of whom you've seen live. The other one you haven't. And so what we're going to do is everybody's going to name their list of bands. Everybody else on the panel is going to write down which band they think the person presenting is lying about that they never saw. We'll go through each person. Then at the end, we'll go back to each person. They're going to reveal which band they did not see. And we'll see who gets the most points for guessing all their panelists' lies about a band that they haven't seen. So you got a week to put together. Got a week to
And to
put
be
this
clear, we're
together.
keeping it thematic, right? All of our bands have to be prog bands, prog metal fusion, prog metal fusion.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Cool.
So that's what we're doing next week. So you got that on Monday and Tuesday on the Hudson Valley Squares and in the Prog Seat. So stay tuned for that. And for all of you who are going to be watching, get out your pen and paper and play along with us. And it'll be fun. Something goofy to deviate a little bit from the alphabet. So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together.
All the
All
time.
the damn
I
time.
have everybody's picks for today in the comments section, probably either later tonight or tomorrow morning. So I know we all will have a lot of homework to do. So, and Gary, I'm talking to you, my friend. Make sure you right, George?
Yep. Come on, man.
Because George knows when Gary's not doing his homework. So
Shame
Thanks
on
for
you,
watching.
Gary. Fucking shame.
Larry.
Gary the slacker, right? Yeah, yes, indeed.
Slacker.
That's right. So thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week on In the Prog Seat. For Chad Hutchinson, Ken Golden, Chuck Alvarez, Louis Nassau, George Lemay, and Eric Porti and Pete Pardo. Good night, everybody. See you real soon.
Good night, everyone.
Cheers.